Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Focused Radio. This is your host, Martin Friedman, joined once again by Mahdi. Mahdi, how you doing?
Doing fine, Martin. I'm glad to be on again to continue this series that we started with the biggest communication problem. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank everybody for supporting the Soul Focus group. We love you. We sincerely love people.
That's
And
right.
we are a company where when you come to us, we love you.
That's right. That's right. That's really we are a love-based organization, right? I mean,
Yeah, not
we
frou-frou love,
literally
not
base
frou-frou
everything.
love, not frou-frou love,
Right.
not but love that has some teeth to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
we expect you to grow. We have expectations and high standards of each other because we know what human beings are capable of when you have an expectation or a standard and you draw that out of people to reach their higher level. And that's what we're about. We're about growing, developing, expanding, and helping people come into their power. And that's so much to celebrate. So much to celebrate.
That's right. In part one of the biggest communication problem, we talked about how we're entering into this phase of existence where really it's supposed to be about love. That's really where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to not be living in these lies anymore. We're supposed to be stepping into love. And unfortunately, we're not doing what we're supposed to do. So we're actually like kind of doubling down on that division, doubling down on hate. And so really when we say, like, I really like how you said it. This is not foo-foo love. I like how you said it. This is love with some teeth because this is serious. Like love is a place where we need to be with each other and we haven't been.
Right,
So,
right.
excited to keep this conversation going.
Yeah, me too. Because when I think about relationships and I think about families, I think about marriages, I think about just the whole idea of dating. I think about us making progress in the social justice movement or anti-racist movement. And I think about the things that really have killed all movements. It's always been internal stuff based upon the biggest problem with communication. And that's misrepresentation. And
Right.
being able to identify those who are misrepresenting themselves. But you can't understand the habits and patterns of misrepresentation until you start accurately representing yourself. When you start accurately representing yourself, you are able to identify very clearly when someone is misrepresenting themselves because you understand the pattern that comes along with lying about who you are.
Right. That's right. And that's not an easy thing to do, right? I mean, because
No, it's not.
our programming and our habits, as we said in the first part of this series, is, our habits and our programming has told us not to do that. So it's not natural to us, right? It doesn't feel natural.
Let's look at this because we know we say this a lot,
Yeah.
right? And I think we
Yeah.
need to catch this. We say
Yes.
that's not easy. And
Hmm.
the program says that's not easy.
It doesn't feel easy. It
It
doesn't
doesn't
feel
feel
easy.
easy because we've been conditioned to feel like it's difficult. Because now think
Right.
about this: we've been made in our perception to think of telling the truth as difficult. Now that's
Right.
some deep
Right.
shit.
Right. Right.
The thing that is going to allow you to have the most power, the most freedom, to be able to be in your authentic self, we have been programmed to believe that is difficult,
Hmm.
but it's easy to tell a lie.
Hmm.
We need to change
Wow.
it. We need to
That's right.
change in our programming that it's easy to tell the truth and it's hard to tell a lie. Because to
Hmm.
be honest with you, you know how difficult it really is to tell a lie? What I mean by difficult, all the shit you gotta go against to
That's
pump
right.
up that lie.
Right.
But our socialization tells us it's hard to tell the truth, but it's easy to lie. We really got
I
to
mean,
examine that.
that's crazy, right? I mean, it's literally in reversal. And from what you're saying, it's like the lie itself is easy in that moment,
In that
but it's
moment.
not, it makes your life harder, right? And that's, again, I think we're programmed to be impulsive. We're programmed to default to lie. Our programming has been for truth to feel more difficult.
Yes, yes. That's socialization. That is not reality. And what I mean by reality is not real in the universe. The idea of
Right.
telling the truth is easier because everything in the universe is supporting the truth. So the
Right.
thing that has 100% support and backing is the truth, not the lie. And that's the reason why lying never solves any problems. No one who's being an inauthentic self will solve a problem, which is also why we look in our society and we are drowning in problems. We're not solving our problems because your representative can't solve the problems in your real life.
Right. Right. Hmm. Yeah,
And
that's
the biggest
exactly.
communication problem has, I mean, a massive bandwidth. It impacts a whole bunch of your life that you understand. If you practice being inauthentic on a regular basis, that's your pattern, that's your habit, that's your tendencies. That in every area of your life, you can't just click back on and be authentic. You know, when I'm around my friends, I'm authentic. No, you're not. You're performing. You're performing more around your friends than sometimes you do at work because you didn't got to into the habit of performing. It's a tendency. It's in your nervous system. You don't even know that you're doing it because you've been doing it for so long.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Agree. So really, we talk a lot about the subconscious programming in the groundwater, right?
Right.
So, as you talked about, as we were ending our last session, our last recording on this, the first in this series about the biggest communication problem, one of the things that you said is, in this podcast, we're going to lay out essentially a plan to start to rewire, to start to, as we say, re-engineer that programming in that groundwater, right?
Right. And it's so important because I think about love, right? Really.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing
Yeah.
more beautiful than romantic love or the love you have for your children, love you have for some, special person. And everybody wants that in a relationship. Everybody wants to be able to have someone that they love and someone that loves them back, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is we have developed the type of tendencies and habits and patterns that are completely contrary to developing a love that will be lasting, a lasting love, right? How do you
Mm-hmm.
develop a lasting love? The only way to develop a lasting love is to build it on accurate representation. Communication is all about representation. Power
Mm-hmm.
comes from accurate representation. And so there are 5 areas I've identified through my 30 years of life coaching and working with people and listening and just paying attention to patterns, tendencies, and habits. Because if you really want to be a master at any craft you do, if you want to understand people, you have to study their patterns, their tendencies, and their habits. Because there's one thing about tendencies and habits and patterns is that they are predictable. And because they are predictable, you can develop formulas and you can study and see what makes people do what they do, why they do what they do. And I've always been about that, ever since I was 5 years old, studying and just figure out why people do what they do because I wanted power. And what I discovered was that power was in accurate representation, right?
Right.
So there are 5 areas that I want you to begin to start practicing accurate representation of yourself because no one else is responsible for representing what's in you to the outside world but you. You could tell yourself all kind of BS about how people are stopping you from being authentic. There's no physical oppression going on for the most part. There is in some places in the world. So I don't want to, act like I got my head buried in the sand. But the
Right.
reality is no one knows who your authentic self is but you. Can we get an amen on that? No one knows what you being authentic is but you. That is something that's a secret between you and you. So
Right.
if I'm gonna show up in the world as my most powerful self, I have to generate myself into the space. And the way
Right.
you generate yourself into the space is to represent every aspect of yourself accurately. The first aspect of yourself you always need to accurately represent is your feelings. What do you feel? Your feelings are the language of your soul. That's how our soul speaks to us. They are more than emotions. Emotions are our reaction to things. That's why we say energy in motion. And it gives us some indicator of what direction we're going when we react to something. But our feelings are not reaction. Our feelings are coming from a deeper reality within ourselves that we don't quite understand yet, but we need to express them accurately when they come up. The next thing we are responsible for accurately representing ourselves is our thoughts. You know, when you're in a relationship and you're getting to know someone, let them know what you think, right? So they could begin to start making decisions or choices about your thinking, because you are not dating a person's body. You know, we look at each other's body like, ooh, she fine, or ooh, he fine, and we get caught up in that bull. That's BS. The reality is the only way you're gonna be able to enjoy that body is if you could enjoy that mind.
Mm.
Am I telling the truth, Martin? Am I telling the truth?
You're telling the truth 100%. 100%, because bodies don't last. You know, bodies, gravity works on bodies. So the body that you see at a certain age isn't going to stay. So I think that's just a simple way of saying that.
Right. And the other thing is too, is just the idea that if a person's mindset and attitude is not beautiful, they could be beautiful.
That's right.
But if their attitude and the way they express themselves is not beautiful, the thoughts they think, then you are not going to enjoy that body with them, because they're not going to allow you to, because they don't enjoy it.
That's right.
If your thoughts are not not beautiful, then you're not beautiful. Not to you. Everybody in the world could say, "Oh, she's so beautiful. He's so handsome." You don't believe that stuff if your own thoughts aren't. So it is so important that we learn to accurately represent ourselves because in our thoughts, because that's the way we also learn how to transform them. By sharing our thoughts with people, we get a chance to get feedback about our thoughts, and then that feedback allows us to adjust them and evolve them, right? And people are going to start looking, especially nowadays, people are looking to see what comes out of your mouth and what actions you take and what outcomes you produce. Because it's not just the actions you take, but it's the outcomes you produce. Action ain't nothing but motion. So you could have motion that's moving in the same direction of what you say. But if the outcome ain't matching both what you say and your actions, then I know there's something up with your communication. And if your communication is off, then your integrity is off. So the third thing is we got to accurately represent what we want. That's so huge. And, you know, I remember my great grandmother teaching me that so at such an early age. I think I was like 6 or 7, when she started teaching me how important the accurate representation of your desires really are. Because most people will go into relationships and won't say what they really want. You know, you have a guy that will be in a relationship and all he wants is sex, and he will never say that. He will misrepresent himself and make himself seem like he's really interested in something greater than sex. And then once he has the sex, he out of there, right? So it brings about deception, brokenheartedness, pain. And somebody gonna have to deal with that. Somebody gonna have to come up behind them and clean stuff up, right? From us inaccurately representing what we want. It is our job. If you hope to be fulfilled, if you hope to be full of joy and to know what it feels like to have your heart pumping behind someone, then you have to say what you want. You have to be honest about what you want, because that's our responsibility. Nobody knows what you want but you. And if you want people to assist you on fulfilling what you want, then you got to say what you want, right? The fourth thing is meaning. What things mean to you? You have to accurately represent what things mean to you, because that's how you represent your values to people. People know what you value by you sharing what things really mean to you. You will find that when a man says he loves a woman and a woman says she loves him back, that they're not talking about the same thing. But we never really discuss what we really are talking about, what it really means to us. And if we discuss what it really means to us, we would find out if our minds are moving in the same direction, or if we have some conflict in the direction we're moving. That's all important. And you should not be afraid to discover the truth about people's truth. And the last thing is to accurately represent our experiences. You know, like I told you in the first podcast, when I was dating as a young man, I would misrepresent my experiences. I would misrepresent my background. And your experiences have a lot to do with your background, what you've gone through, what you've learned or what you haven't learned, what you are still going through over and over again. Some of us will misrepresent our experiences because we're chasing behind other people's experiences. And we think that the experiences we have are not good enough to get us where we want to go. So we try to go after other people's experiences. And the reality is the only experience The only experiences that can take you to where you really want to go are your own. If you don't experience it for yourself, it's not going to become your power. So those 5 things are areas that we have to accurately represent ourselves, develop habits and tendencies and patterns of accurately representing ourselves, because it's when we do that, we generate ourselves fully into the room. We bring ourselves fully, like Jay-Z on an interview, he was talking about how when he goes to these big old power meetings with these other billionaires, he go as himself. He doesn't go as his representative. He said there were a point in time in his life where he might have went as representative, but his greatest accomplishment is not the money he's making. The greatest accomplishment, he says to himself, is when he's able to go into these meetings as himself, because he knows that's the power. You are the power. And every time you leave a part of yourself out, you reduce your level of power. And I didn't want to do that like in the teaching method, but the reality is, this is a good way to lay it out, and then we could discuss it in certain situations. So, if Martin, if you have any questions about this, or just let's dig into it.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a great way to lay it out, because I think a lot of us have a tendency to get up in our heads and we just say things. It's like, well, immediately, for many of us, we start thinking about why we don't think that thing that you just said is true, right? So even just saying communication's biggest problem is that we don't accurately represent ourselves. I could already hear people, like, I don't know if you know this or not, but I have the superpower that I can hear what our audience is thinking. Like, I can hear past, future, and present. I already know what they're thinking, right?
What are they thinking, Mark? What they're saying?
Well, first thing that I heard them say is, well, I do accurately represent myself. I'm me all the time. Like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, of course I'm me. I know who I am, and I don't agree that, that's the first thing I heard them say. I heard them say some other stuff too, but the first thing I heard them say is, what are you talking about? I'm always me. I'm always representing who I am. So what would you say to them?
I'm not here to convince you that you are misrepresenting yourself. That's not what my job is, because all you have to do is look at the outcomes you're generating in your life. And if you're not getting what you want, then that answers the question. So it's not about, your ego proving to me that you already do. If you did, you wouldn't even feel a need to make that point. If you feel the need to make the point, I don't know what he's talking about. He don't know, then you're trying to defend yourself against something. And why are you defending yourself against something that's not real for you? If you accurately represent yourself, then you would have no reason. That reaction from you is telling you something. You should need to study that, because even in that, you are misrepresenting yourself.
Right.
That's why defensiveness comes up. I mean, if I'm not a thief and somebody starts accusing people of thievery, if thieving is not a part of my DNA, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, then I'm not. I know they're not talking to me. It's like somebody calling somebody else's name. They call him Bob. Hey, Bob. Why would Mahdi turn and respond to Bob? See, that's a lot of us. You reacting to shit and you saying it's not me. Then why are you reacting to it? Because it just shouldn't have called your address. If Bob is your address, then respond to Bob. If your address is not Bob, then you should keep your mouth closed, because you working on. You got this. You got this. You don't even need this podcast, which we know that's not true. That's why you're listening. So be honest with yourself, because that's probably even the most important representation above everything else. The accurate representation of being honest to yourself first, because if you're not honest with yourself, you are not going to be honest with other people.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. So let me tell you something else I hear them thinking right now. The other thing I hear them thinking is, well, that's easy for you to say, but every time I've done any of these, like any of these 5, right? Anytime I've accurately represented feelings, thoughts, what I want, what I mean, my experiences, anytime I've done any of that, bad things have happened to me. Things have gotten bad for me at work. I've lost relationships. So, that's that. I hear them, they're thinking that really loud right now.
And I appreciate them saying that. And I would say bad things have been happening to you every time you lie. Every time you misrepresent yourself, bad things have been happening to you, but you've been blinded to those bad things because they occur to you as normal.
So get some examples. Get some examples of that.
You're performing at a very low level. You're not reaching your full potential. You have doubt. You doubt yourself. You don't trust yourself. Every time you misrepresent yourself, you are experiencing something bad. You just don't know it because we've created a society where mediocre is the thing. But if you are still interested in reaching your full potential, if you're still interested in being your most powerful self, then guess what? You got to look at the reality of, measure the reality against the bad things that are happening to you every time you misrepresent yourself versus the presumably bad things that are going to happen to you if you accurately represent yourself. Because in the beginning, it may seem like it's a little turbulent, but it's only turbulent because you are still unsure about your accurate self, about your authentic self. Once you become sure about your authentic self, you will see the turbulence go away. It's like in the airplane, you first taking off and you go through a certain area of turbulence. And once you get through it, it gets clear. It's the same way with this. In the beginning, because you've had so many negative thoughts about being authentic, you will probably go through some turbulence. The turbulence is being created by your own thoughts, by your own beliefs about what's going to happen as a result of me being authentic. But once you push past that ceiling and you get above it, you see nothing but clear skies, baby. Now, that don't mean life don't have problems, because you got to understand life is made for problems. Problems are not the problem. No problems have ever been the problem. The problem has been the perspective that we've held about the problem that has prevented us from solving the problem, because problems are how we grow ourselves. And not the real measurement of health in this world is by how well we solve problems. And if you're not solving problems well, it's because you're inaccurately representing yourself, because your problem solving mechanisms don't work right when we misrepresent ourselves.
Say the first part of what you just said again, because I want people to really understand it. So maybe slow it down a little bit.
What part was that?
What are you saying about problems? What are you saying about problems? You're saying that what I heard you say. I'll say it, and tell me if I'm on it. I just want to make sure that folks are really getting this.
Okay.
You're saying that the problem isn't the problem.
No, the problem is
the problems are here. The problem is never the problem. The problems are here to actually help us grow.
Right.
What happens is when a problem becomes a problem because of how we perceive it, because we're not accurately representing ourselves, because we don't see a clear path to that growth. So if you could just expand on that part of it a little bit more, because I want to make sure that we slow that down so folks can really get that point. It's an important point.
So the problem is not the problem, meaning that life is made up of problems, equations for us to solve. That's why we're here. We came here to solve equations. And in the solving of equations, express ourselves fully through the solving of them. So you're not going to get rid of problems in life. You're wasting your time if you're trying to get rid of problems. What you need to do is change your perspective about what problems are and see them as exercises to grow yourself, to get bigger, to get more in depth with yourself. But you can't grow your inauthentic self because it's not real. You can't grow a fictitious character. You can only grow your authentic self. So when you solve problems, you grow. Now, when you stop expressing yourself authentically, you start misrepresenting yourself, you start losing the ability to solve the problems in your life, and you become unhealthy, because that's the truest measurement of health in society. It is our ability to solve problems. Our immune system on the inside of us and our body is solving problems all the time. And as long as it's doing a good job solving the problems in your body, of the things that are the viruses and the bacteria and all the stuff that's attacking it, you have no problems. I mean, you don't feel any external results of it because your immune system is working right. It's solving the problems. The same thing with our mind. We have a problem-solving mechanism. We call it imagination. When our imagination is working correctly, it solves problems without exerting too much energy at all, because the imagination is always above the problem. So when Albert Einstein says you can't solve a problem at the same level of thinking that you created it, what he's saying is you have to go into your imagination and imagine the solution, not find the solution, but imagine the solution, create the solution out of nothing. And then, of course, in our spirit or in our soul, the problem-solving mechanism is our free will. So every day of your life, we have the power to make choices. And those choices are designed to help us be able to solve problems in our life. And if you don't have a choice, then you need to do the same thing your imagination does. Your imagination creates a solution. If you don't have a choice, then you have to create a choice. Literally. If you don't have a choice, you have to create a choice. There are so many inventions that exist today that were not choices at all. You know, you talk about the Wright brothers and the whole idea of flying, right? Since I was on that subject. That choice did not exist before. They had to create that choice. using their imagination. And you go through invention after invention after invention. People created that from what? From out of nothing. From using their problem-solving mechanisms, their immune system in their body, their imagination in their mind, and their free will. Each and every one of us who listen to this podcast have those same dimensions in their internal engineering every day. And you got 24 hours a day to be with yourself so you can figure out how to use them to solve your problems so you can live a healthy life. But you defending yourself about the idea that, no, it's not me. I can represent myself all the time. Listen, I've worked with enough people throughout enough years, 30 years, hundreds of thousands of people. And I can tell you by patterns, tendencies, and habits, people inaccurately represent themselves all the time. It is a habit that oftentimes the average person cannot see. And listen, if you consider yourself the average person, you are in trouble. Because the average person, there is a mapped out life for you based upon your patterns, habits, and tendencies. And that's what makes you average. You have tendencies, patterns, and habits that match the masses of people. And so that means that, boardrooms across the country of big conglomerates have figured out how to capitalize on your habits, your tendencies, and your patterns, how to make money off of it, how to exploit it, because you're average. That's the problem. Right. You would not be average if you accurately represented yourself. Every single one of us would be extraordinary if we accurately represented our 5 areas of truth. That's what makes you average. That's what makes you the average Joe Blow or Betty Sue Joe, whatever they say, But the idea is aspire to not be average. And to do that, you want to be extraordinary, have extraordinary integrity. And it can only happen by you accurately representing yourself.
Yeah. So I was listening to the audience, listen to you, and you lost them for a minute there, right?
All right.
Because the reason why you lost them is because people are thinking, I can't do that. I don't have any power. I'm dealing with all this oppression. I'm just a quote unquote average person. I heard him say that. So you were listening too, because I heard them say, I'm not that person. I don't have any power. I don't have systemic power. I don't have all that. So I think you got a lot of them back by the end of what you were saying, but you definitely had lost them a little bit because people, for the most part, they were saying, that's not me. I don't have that power. I feel powerless. What would you say to them when they're in that place of feeling powerless, helpless, overwhelmed, especially when it comes to things like ending oppression, like racism or gender oppression or oppression around sexual orientation or class oppression or any of these oppressions, ability, any of them? What would you say to people who say, I have no power, I'm on the oppressed side?
I would say this. I get what you're saying, and I understand where you're coming from. But at the same time, here's the reality. There are certain things that we are responsible for that no one else can be. That if you focus on those things, it will bring you into view of what you have charge of. And if you want to feel your power, you have to focus on what you have charge of. Because if you focus on the power that you don't have, then you will continue to feel powerless. If you focus on the power you do have and you work to start exercising that power, you will start to feel powerful, which will increase and generate more power. Here's some things that you are responsible for that no one else is. You are responsible for your thoughts. I want you to think about that for a minute. You are responsible for your thoughts. Being extraordinary is about accepting responsibility for your own thoughts. In other words, you are going to work on changing the way you think because no one else can. I could say the things I'm saying to you right now, and that will not change your thoughts. Only you have the power to let in this information and begin to start actually working on transforming the thoughts you think. That's your charge. That's something you have control over. Here's something else. Who is responsible for your choices? No one but you. They are your choices. And guess what? No matter what the situation is, you have some. Even if they're not many, and if you don't have any at all, you still have the choice to create a choice, one that we don't even know exists. So guess what? That's on you. That is something that you have charge of. If you take charge of your thoughts, if you take charge of your choices, wow, what can you do with that? What can be done with a choice? You right now, you're making a whole bunch of choices right now. You're choosing what you want to focus on, right? Which is a big choice. You're choosing what you want to pay attention to. You're choosing those things. That's a power that you have that you don't even consider. Here's something else. You are choosing your perspective. You are choosing your perspective. And now let me tell you something. You say, well, what's perspective got to do with everything? And the reason why perspective has everything to do with it is because what you see is what you get. What you see ain't what I get. We could walk into the same reality in life, same situation in life. And what I will pull out of that situation will be totally different from you because I have a different perspective than you have. I have a perspective that everything is working in my favor. So I tend to pull things out that the average person cannot because they don't have that perspective. But the first law of perspective says what you see is what you get. In other words, the thoughts that you think are really what you are going to get out of the situation because that's what you believe is available to you. That's what you see in your mind is available to you. And what you see in your mind that's available is all that's available to you. But that don't mean that's all that's available to everyone else. If you haven't noticed anything in life, you should have noticed this. Life treats no two people the same. No two people ever being treated the same. One person could walk to a door and the door is wide open for them. And the other person walk behind them and the door is shut. You see that happen over and over again. And it has nothing to do with race, has nothing to do with gender, has nothing to do with sexual orientation, has nothing to do with economic situation. The reality is life, the universe, doesn't treat anybody the same because we're all unique, walking around with our own unique variable and niche in life. And how we respond and what we see in our perspective is delegating the doors that are open in a lot of cases and the doors that remain closed.
That's powerful, and you just got almost everybody on board. I think what you said, which is so powerful, is yeah. What I heard, what I heard them say is they really appreciated you saying that it's not your words. Your words aren't going to be the change, and that this idea of perspective. I know some people are out there are still struggling with that. It's really a choice. Part of the programming that has happened to us is that we've been convinced that the choice has been made externally for us, and that we don't have a lot of the choices that we actually do. So I think that people are going to mull that over for a little while.
Well,
I would say
that's a good point, though, because I like that point you just made, and I'm glad they're thinking that because it gives us a chance to talk about the reality of this.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the alternative? According to that way of thinking, that means you are sitting down waiting. What are you waiting for? Let's see the possibilities. Some of us are waiting for supposedly God to come back and do it for us. Some of us are actually waiting on the oppressor that we believe put us in the condition that we're in to change their ways before we change. Now, listen, I don't know what your belief is in God, but I know this. God expects us to do some work. You are sitting down with a brain that is capable. Listen, let me tell you what I just recently, revisited my knowledge about the brain and the capacity in our brain to hold information. And they say, according to experts, our brain memory capacity can put the whole internet in it and it wouldn't dent it. Now, think about that for a minute. You walking around with a supercomputer that can put the whole internet in it and wouldn't blink. Because that's how much capacity you have for knowledge. And you are telling us that you want to wait for the oppressor to change before you change? God gave us that as a weapon or as a tool to create the life we want to create, and you want to find an excuse to not use all of that power that you're walking around with between your ears every day? I'm not buying into that. If I bought into that, then I would have to buy into all the rest of the lies that come along with you believing what you believe, that you don't have any power. You do have power. The things that you have control over now in your life, start exercising them. Start taking responsibility for them. Take responsibility for your choices. Take responsibilities for your desires. Take responsibility for your thoughts. Take responsibility for them. There's no one else's responsibility. And you will begin to start seeing how your brain can assist you in solving all your problems and how we can begin to start creating collectives of health and wholeness. Because when you bring individuals into collectives who are misrepresenting themselves, all you're doing is creating the more of what we already got. So all of us need to be doing this work where we are embracing our authentic self passionately. And we are committing to being our beautiful self. We are so beautiful. Every individual, unique individual, such a beautiful creation. And you keep finding ways to put yourself down. Stop it. Stop it. You are a secret weapon. And nobody has the secret that you have. And everybody's waiting on you to put it on the table. And the only person stopping you from putting it on the table is you and your own thoughts.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mahdi. I think it might have been a book or a saying or something, but I kept thinking about, as you were talking, the idea of, face your fears and do it anyways, right? Because the fears that come up, those are the ego-based fears, the external fears. So any fears that are coming up for you as you're listening, face those fears, do it anyways. If you've been doing the same thing your whole life and expecting different results, but getting the same results, this is the time to really step into that, right? To step into, and you asked the question earlier, how well is everything working for you now? How as well is the way that you've been handling this, not showing up authentically? How is that working for you? I got one last group of people that are unresolved.
Before you say it, you got to measure your outcomes. If you're not measuring your outcomes, then you're basing your whole premises on a lie. Measure your outcomes. If you're not getting what you want, then whatever you are using as your strategy ain't working.
That's right. That's it. So I got one last group. One last group. As we close out here, the one last group, this is what they keep saying to me. Doesn't he understand? I don't know who my authentic self is. I don't know who that is. I'm so many different people for so many different people in my life and so many different situations. I don't even know who my authentic self is. Doesn't he understand that? So I'm just representing them right now. Asking for a friend, as they say.
Thank you for asking for a friend, because I respect that answer, that statement more than any other answer has been asked.
Yeah.
And the reason why, because you are doing the first thing that has to happen to get back into your authentic self. You are accurately representing yourself where you are right now. And what you've just said is the step toward authenticity. All authenticity is the accurate representation of yourself. It is something you generate in every moment. Your authentic self is not going to be the same in every moment. That's why you got to generate it in every moment. It's not in the future, I'm going to be this, and in the future, I'm going to be that. You are not going to be the person you are right now tomorrow. If you are accurately representing yourself, you're going to constantly be evolving. You're going to express things that you have never seen. If you keep accurately representing the 5 areas you are responsible for in your communication. So let's just think of authentic self as your accurate representation of yourself. And that's live. That's live. That's not in the future. It's not in the past. It's right now. When you do that, you keep yourself in the now. There is no power in the future. There is no power in the past. Power is now, or it don't exist whatsoever. And the only way to generate it is through accurate representation of the 5 things I talked about at the very beginning: your feelings, your thoughts, your desires, your meaning or your value, and your experiences. Accurately represent yourself in the moment. You will feel authentic and your power will surge through you. And yes, it takes courage, but all courage means is, I'm afraid, but damn it, I'm doing it anyway.
Love it.
Me too.
Okay, everybody's pretty happy right now.
Everybody's good.
Yeah, I think everybody's. My superpower tells me everybody's feeling pretty good right now, and they also are saying, you know what, I'm probably have to listen through this a couple times. Please, and I would highly recommend you listen to this a couple times.
Yes.
Absolutely. And also send it to the people in your life that you want to be authentic with you. Because the people that you're having problems with in your life, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mahdi, but the most of the people that you're having problems with in your life right now, the problems you're having with them is because you're not being authentic with yourself and they're not being authentic with themselves.
Exactly.
So send this to everybody.
An agreement to lie to each other.
That's right. That's right. And, you use the word weapon a couple of times, and I would say, love, like it's a love based weapon. Like send this with love. Send this to the
Yes.
people that you want to hear it from a place of love, not like, see, he was talking about you. See, but
Yeah.
like,
because that means you ain't getting it at all. That means you think you got
right.
it.
And you're not doing your work. That's right. And you're not doing your own work. You're not doing your own work.
If you're not looking at yourself, you're not doing your work.
That's right. That's right. So thank you all for taking this time with us today. And thank you for the work that you already are doing and going to do to look at yourself, because that's the real work. The real work, as Mahdi said, is to be authentic moment to moment. Don't see it as like, I'll be a new person after I do this or after I do that. It's not about being a new person. It's about us being the fullest and most authentic representation of who we are. So I hope you've heard that today. Mahdi, I want to thank you so much for what you shared today.
I appreciate you. I appreciate this topic. I appreciate the listeners. I appreciate the people that have been supporting the Soul Focus Group. Please continue. We love you. We love you. We love you.
Yes, we do. And we mean that. We really do. And the reason why we know we mean it is because we love ourselves and we love the process that we're in, and we want you to be a part of it. So please come to soulfocusgroup.com in the fall of around October and November of 2021. We are rolling out a brand new version of our website with so much updated information, so much more user friendly, so many more opportunities to connect with what we're doing, that we want you to be on this journey with us. And we're excited to have you on this journey with us.
Yes, we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and of course, listen to all of our podcasts on all the different platforms that they're offered. And as you walk into your journey, to be your most authentic self and represent yourself most authentically, please be safe, be well, and most of all, stay soul focused.